Is it okay if I just pull my chair up to the front? Just for the sake of efficiency and moving things along. Daycare is extremely important, or childcare, I should say. It's an issue that's not talked about enough in the city. I'm a dad. I have 2 kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And right now we pay more for childcare than we do for rent. One city has a plan. So we want to, one, we support the $10 a day childcare plan that the Coalition of Childcare Advocates of BC are putting forward. We want the city to take the leadership in showing that this plan can work by piloting it in a neighborhood that's underserved with childcare space. So, and by gathering that data, by showing not only that that there's a need, but there's a demand, and that we can show its effectiveness too, in making sure that families, both parents can go to work and can afford childcare and can continue to improve their situation here in the city, that we can build a stronger case of implementing that $10 a day childcare plan, not only here in Vancouver, but across the province. Thank you.
And just the point of this question is about the $11 million program that was planned for here that was canceled, that was in the capital plan. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to start by reiterating what RJ said and just emphasizing the fact that childcare, critically important, and a lot of people I know are suffering from that and leaving the city. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the notion that this was approved in the capital plan in 2011, and it's now another election and nothing's happened with it. Admittedly, I don't know enough about this issue, but that seems outrageous to me, that if it's a capital plan that we approved it in 2011, why are we even talking about this now? Why hasn't ground been broken? I think this again points to the lack of transparency, the lack of a consultative working with communities, and the fact that we're even having this conversation should be, well, I'm guessing it is probably pretty offensive to most of you here, because it's pretty offensive to me. Definitely, we need to grapple with these kind of issues and open up the transparency. The fact that we had to rely on guys like Bob Mackin to do half this research because there is no FOI process that delivers the information in a timely manner, again, this is just boggling to me.
So the issue, I think, is the allocation that was made in the larger capital plan at the last election, and that allocation is still there. It's still approved, I believe, because it is a park board issue that they are still working through the process, and I don't know where that's at, having not sit on the park board, and that's a separately elected body that makes these types of decisions. And so I'll find out for you where that's at and try to report back on where that's where they're in that process. But what I can say, though, is that Vision Vancouver is very much interested in childcare. That's why in our platform we've made a commitment of creating 1,000 extra childcare spaces, in addition to another 1,000 after-school care spaces as well, and trying to leverage additional provincial funding for any school that will undergo a seismic upgrade. But that's not the end of it. We're also trying to make sure that children don't go hungry, that our school programs also have children that are fed, and that's why we have a breakfast program that we're also funding as part of our platform as well. And so this is all part of our effort to try to help our young families live in our city, and I guess that's time. Thank you.
So sorry, this is the first time I heard about the $11 million child care plan that went missing. I know that Killarney's still looking for a senior center, and Creekside's still looking for a park, and Marpole is looking to have their community center saved and not get squeezed out by the YMCA, and I know Mount Pleasant is still looking for their community pool. Oak Ridge Park, but now there's this as well. So let's just do an informal show of hands. Who here supports the idea of a new child care center right here in your neighborhood? Cool. Oh, there's a couple of no's. Hard to believe. Well, that's a clear majority, and we are pledging to do the will of the people, and you have spoken, so we obviously would support the reintroduction of your child care plan. And I'm Jeremy Gustafson, Cedar Party City Councillor. Thank you.
Very important question. The $11 million, I have to admit, I didn't know that much about that. And I don't. But I do support, and I think it's important that we have and we work towards the $10 a day daycare plan. And while we're doing that, we should also find some way to put elders, to put seniors together. I know that there just seems to be a lack of political will to bridge the generations, and I would like to see seniors. I know I'm a grandfather, and I try and spend as much time as I can with my grandchildren, and I think it would be good for the health of the community to have all ages, intergenerational interactions, and I would like to see the $10 a day daycare also be improved or put together with incidences of elder care and service to seniors. I think that would be the best way. As for the $11 million, I have no idea where it is.
Hi, Melissa DeGenova from the NPA. First of all, I'd like to say yes, the NPA, myself, George Affleck, we support the Kensington daycare facility that was proposed. And in fact, many people in the community have told me as a park board commissioner that they feel that Kensington is being punished for the park board negotiations and for not being a part of that. And that this is the way that Vision Vancouver has chosen to punish the community. And that's what I've been told. Vision Vancouver has taken to pitting communities against each other. Yes, Britannia needs a new center, but so does Marpole and Dunbar and Hastings, who were also promised centers. And let's talk about the senior center. Councillor Louie told me we didn't have the money to complete it. I met with the provincial and the federal representatives. We got the money to complete that. Where's the shovels in the ground, Councillor Louie? Could you please tell us tonight when the senior center will be built? I'm still waiting to find out. And also, let's talk about feeding kids. Maybe if we cut some of those people in the communications program, we could put some more breakfast on the table. Thanks.
I actually did know about the 11 million because I actually tried to fix and solve that problem. We should have put it on a milk carton and said it's missing, but it would have got us nowhere. But this is exactly why this is the insanity of a capital plan to vote on when we have no guarantee that that money will be released. I actually worked for the federal minister when that money was released from the federal government for that senior center. I'm still wondering why it's not started. That money was approved for Marpole. That money has not been allocated. That project has not been started. We talk about promises, we talk about capital budgets, we borrow hundreds of millions. This is insanity, people. We were asked to now approve hundreds of millions more in borrowing, yet an approved plan for $11 million to build a child care center facility here under the control and authority of the Community Center Association was denied. They put a nice billboard up that they were going to build it. It didn't happen. We actually tried to work out a plan with the lawn bowlers who were promised money almost 25 years ago.
Thank you. Okay, on to the next question, and we'll start again with Vancouver first. The city is facing an unprecedented number of lawsuits from citizen groups around the city, from community center associations, on various issues related to the lack of consultation, to community planning, and the centralization of community center operations. What will you do to repair the relationship between communities and City Hall?
Federico was actually going to take this, but since I was actually the one who hired the lawyer and started the lawsuit, the very first lawsuit against the City of Vancouver, the answer is simple. Sit down and give the associations what they want. Sit down without any preconditions. And the first step could be literally putting in a clause in every joint operating agreement with every community center association for a third-party independent mediation arbitration clause. Done. Every outstanding issue taken care of. Haddon Park, Marpole, the other organizations. Sit down without preconditions. And don't send staff. I have been to countless meetings, countless town hall assemblies, and staff come. Where are our elected officials? They're invisible. Elected officials need to sit, need to get an earful. Marpole was a perfect example of this. Marpole put out 2,000 lawn signs, and suddenly Vision Vancouver could see them and hear them and understand them because they knew the election was right around the corner. This is, again, a prime example of why we have to change the status quo, break the slate.
This is by George Affleck, MPA. This is by far one of the most frustrating and disappointing issues and things
things that I've had to deal with as a councillor the last 2 years is the lack of, the anger the citizens have towards us, the lack of, the vision, not listening. They've rammed every single project through in public hearings. Doesn't matter if 200 people show up, they still ram it through. The NPA plans to first do a reboot of city plan. So basically a city plan, an overall city plan. Let's look at that, let's rebuild it, let's do it again, and get everybody involved in how we want the city to look over the next 20, 30, 40 years. Then respect the community plans. And third, we're going to have an office of an ombudsman where you can come, an ombudsperson, and you can come if you've got a problem and you can't seem to get any satisfactions from the politicians or staff, then you go to this ombudsperson who will be distant from the staff and distant from the politicians and be able to hopefully resolve your problem at City Hall without having to sue like the 18 lawsuits we currently have against us, which is shocking and disappointing and embarrassing, to be honest.
We knew this question was going to come up here, and so took the time to write it down, and I will read you what we're going to do, and that is, Cope Council Caucus has agreed that a Cope government would, 1, settle the lawsuit by agreement with community centres, by seeking a consent order from the Supreme Court of British Columbia that recognizes that the consideration of the sweat equity and finances that community centres have put in for 50 to 75 years. Community centres in the City of Vancouver should be able to do this consent order, and it is within the spirit and intent of the mechanism by which a Cope government would recognize and ensure that an order of the Supreme Court would stand for all time the contributions and rights of community centres. So we would support community centres, and that the lawsuits are just a boon for lawyers. And as you know, the City of Vancouver has an unlimited amount of lawyers.
The city does seem to think they have an unlimited amount of lawyers, and they seem to think they have an unlimited amount of money. The only problem is it's your money. Just like Jesse, I've been involved in a couple of lawsuits, and they're a little bit different. Mine would be involved in conflict of interest, or alleged conflict of interest. And Jesse's, I think that the city, what they've got to do is they've got to tell their lawyers to walk away and sit down like grown adults and respectfully just come to an agreement. If they have to bring in a third-party arbitrator, so be it. But it's not, you got to dismiss the lawyers and just sit down with these guys. Now, why is this happening? Earlier tonight, I told you about the fact that Transparency International says that municipal governments need 4 basic things for anti-corruption. But we don't have those. The next step, when you don't have lobbyist registries or external auditors or ombudsman, is law, is going to court and the police. And that is all citizens are left with now, calling the police and hiring a lawyer.
Well, we live in Canada and it's democracy, and I really appreciate the opportunity to take people to court if necessary. And that's exactly what's happened. And I think that it's appropriate that we avail of ourselves when we feel that there's no recourse that's left to us. But it is also important to recognize that, as I understand the situation with community center associations, which I also support, and I have many friends on many different associations, that I hope that we have a renewed agreement, because that was the thrust of it, that it was an old agreement that all parties, at least the ones that are negotiating, 12 currently, that believed that a refreshing of this agreement was necessary. Some disagreed and have walked away from the table and launched a lawsuit. That's my understanding, and I hope that, and I know that the offer to come back to the table is still there. What I will also say is that there's been some of these lawsuits that have not had merit. The courts have thrown them out. That they, in fact, the latest one, the court decided that there was no merit and awarded costs. And so a measure of the anxiety or of the citizens isn't always the number, but the quality. And so
Thank you.
I think it is important to note that as well.
So, of course, this very reason is why I'm here today. I was active in my own community as the chair of the neighborhood association. We had the city wanted to put a freeway through when they were going to take the viaducts down. We had to fight them. We've been feeding hungry kids for the last 6 years. Now Vision's promising that they'll feed them if they get elected. Thanks. I mean, since they've been in power, anyway. This is a typical scenario that we find when we run out of options and we end up in litigation, and that's the wrong way to govern. I recently traveled to Portland to see how they do things differently. Portland has the same kind of trajectory as us. In the 1970s, they fought the freeways. They ended up with a robust system of neighborhood consultation, 96 different neighborhood associations and 7 different district coalitions. When the city wants to deal with the neighborhoods, they have to sit down, and they actually staff those neighborhood associations with city staff to help them fight the city when it comes down to what they need for their neighborhoods. Our system's broken. We shouldn't be in lawsuits with our own city. This is ridiculous. We need to actually reinvent the wheel. And it's not rocket science. Other people are doing it. It's done.
I'm working up an appetite here. Hi, RJ Aquino, One City. One City, we've endorsed the Coalition of Vancouver Neighborhoods principles and goals document. So that's a good blueprint to start to use when engaging with neighborhoods across the city. We've also put forward the idea of neighborhood councils, democratically elected and funded by the city, so that there's a formal relationship between City Hall and the neighborhoods, and so that that communication is properly formally had. And it goes beyond to just repairing that relationship. We want to restore the trust of the public as a whole through campaign finance reform. We want to have more accountable government through award system, so that you know who to go to in City Hall if you have a problem in your neighborhood, or if you have an ineffective councilor, you can throw them out because they haven't been effective for your neighborhood. Thank you. Passing to Mike.
Great Orser idea party. I agree with a lot what's been said here, and I think it's appalling that you guys have these wonderful associations in Vancouver. We don't have this in Burnaby, and you should use them, and they should be respected. I don't know why they're not. I mean, it's part of the history of Vancouver to have these community groups and community associations that are independent of the city. They should use them. They should use those to gather community feedback on their policies and have a more democratic system. This idea of breaking down and trying to centralize is really kicking up a stink, and I think Vision is going to feel it in the election. And I'm here to participate in that. You guys want me on the council? I can help resolve this issue. And the Wellness Hub, of course, is here to consult and to offer wellness and all that kind of stuff. Thank you very much.
The basic frustration is the city is not responsive to the people. They're responsive to the developers, to the corporations, and the cities run amok with uncivil servants telling the politicians what to do. It's not the members on council who write these beautiful reports, 80, 200-page reports. It's civil servants or uncivil servants, and they run amok. And they run amok because they destroyed the charter. The charter has been destroyed. And anyone who thinks we can recover anything called human rights without restoring the charter is dreaming in Technicolor. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start the next round of questions with you. This election will be the last one until 2018. And what ideas do you have to empower citizens, to give the citizens more power that they're giving up by giving the politicians more power, an extra year of power? Examples could be citizens assembly, petitions, direct elections for Metro Vancouver directors, or even lobbyist registry.
Well, my initial response on that is I went checking to see a councillor, anyone who got elected used to have to run 4 years in order to get a pension when the term was 3 years. And that's, in other words, you had to get elected twice. Okay? I've asked several times, now that it's gone to 4 years, does the pension come in 4 years, or did they raise it to 5? No one will answer that question, okay? Maybe it's too sensitive, okay? And if you want to get people responsive, let someone be in council for 9 years, two terms in. Because if you're not servicing the people, there is no incentive for you to do anything if you're getting a pension by lying once in City Council.
What's your name? Marc Boyer.
Oh, Marc Boyer, Independent, Marijuana Party. Thank you.
Well, I think the Citizens Assembly is a good start. I'll give Vision some credit on that, but they didn't have much of a choice, really. There's a lot of pressure on them. So, you know, that's the better way to go. We got to press them that the Citizens Assembly, community groups is the best way to go and give people power that way to have their voice heard. Thank you very much.
First of all, I'd like to thank Pete for his invaluable service for holding the microphone for us on this end of the table. Yay, Pete. I'm going to repeat a bit of what I said last time. I mean, empowering citizens through meaningful consultations with teeth instead of just lip service through neighborhood councils. Working on and making sure real campaign finance reform happens. You know, restarting that conversation around ward systems. So ensuring that people know that the power is in their neighborhoods. And you know, with campaign finance reform, I think there's a lot of, at least I've heard a lot, talking to people across the city that, you know, they want to take big money out of politics because they feel that their voices are being drowned out by the big money that seems to influence the decisions at City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I've heard from a lot of people in Grandview Woodlands that their frustration with the fact that the Citizen Assembly was established, a random selection of citizens as a way to deflect the anger of residents at seeing their plan usurped in the way of having towers dumped in at the corner of Broadway and Commercial. And those citizen groups, those active citizens, are not being involved in that Citizen Assembly in anything but a token way. Secondly, I want to say that that I put forward 2 plebiscite motions. I think on very controversial issues, it's important to have plebiscites. We had one on phasing out the Zumas Family Park. I put one forward around phasing out the cetaceans in captivity. That was just sent away from the council table. I put one forward, this was only a few months ago, to hold a referendum on Kinder Morgan, just like they did up the coast around the Northern Gateway program, and no one else on council voted for that. In terms of ongoing neighborhood involvement and citizen engagement and real involvement, I think Pete's outlined from what they do in Portland, a way that actually provides for real collaborative decision making. And finally, just want to sit in. Okay, next question. We'll get to the last point. Thanks.
Well, the process in governance has been a bit challenging. You know, we on council listened to the community when the feedback came back. Staff went out with some ambitious plans for Grand Woodlands, and council said no. That we heard from the community and said that's not good enough, and restarted the entire process. So take the time and spend the money. And we put more money and more time into the project. And if it doesn't come back with what is acceptable, then we'll start again. 10 years, for instance, is what it took in Chinatown before we got that plan. Over 331 meetings, I think it was, in the downtown east side before we got it right, and that was over the space of about 5 years before that was completed as well. And so these things take time. Sometimes we want to move quickly, and sometimes it takes more time, and we're committed to making sure that we take the time. What I do want to highlight for you, though, is that Vision Vancouver has a platform. It's on our website. In there, it talks about strong, vibrant neighborhoods, and in the document itself, it talks about the City Engagement Cities Task Force suggestions on how do we proceed. We will be implementing those ones. Have a look at that, and it includes a neighborhood capital plan. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, hi. Jeremy Gustafson, City Council candidate with the Cedar Party, running with Glen Chernen. Our 2 other councillor candidates have showed up. There's Charlene Gunn back there, and there's Nick Chernen. And another candidate, Anthony Guitar, is an independent councillor candidate. They're all just filling in. We were about the first party to set our own campaign limits, $2,400. So when we were first forum, we went with a lobbyist registry. We want to bring that in. We want to have an anti-corruption league. No, not league. Office.
We're superheroes.
Watching too many superhero movies. A little different than an ombudsperson. We want to have an outside independent agency actually overseeing all transactions to keep things on the fair and square. Much like One City, we have completely embraced and endorsed the Coalition of Vancouver Neighborhoods Collaborative Planning document. We also have that, from that poster back there, Neighborhoods for Sustainable Vancouver. They've laid out a very clear framework of what they expect for accountability from their elected officials. We support that as well. Am I out of time yet? I'd just like to add that how does a single guy like me know about a 3-year wait for child care and for the senior center and for Marpole and all that stuff? It's because I've done just what I'm doing right now. I showed up and I listened to you. It's that easy for me. Thank you.
You have the opportunity to empower yourselves immensely on November the 15th. That's basically the way our democracy works. You have this chance to vote. And I would suggest that everyone vote. I think it's also important to recognize that when Councillor Louie talks about the 10-year plan in Chinatown of the Heights Review, it may be a 10-year plan, but it doesn't mean because it took 10 years it was good. Basically, that plan had Chinatown landowners and businesses. There were very few homeless people involved that are in that area. The single-room occupancy residents were not consulted. And they had a 10-year plan where this plan, when they were doing the local area plan, they took Chinatown out of the plan to zone a bunch of high-rises. And then they put Chinatown back into the plan after all these high-rises were zoned.
Thank you.
I'll have to be quick because there's a lot that we want to do. And my colleague George Affleck has spoken a little bit about city plan and how we want to empower the neighborhoods and have community-driven neighborhood plans. Also, Kirk LaPointe and our team have proposed a lobbyist registry, as well as the Office of the Ombudsman, which we've talked about a little more tonight, and community centers. Community centers are the heart and soul of our communities, and we need to fix that broken relationship and respect our community centers. And our mayoralty candidate, Kirk LaPointe, vowed today that he will be having weekly meetings himself with the Citizens Assembly, so no one's going to be asking, where's Kirk? And I have to ask, Councillor Louie, what will Vision Vancouver do? In 4 more years, will you complete the senior center? Will you give Mount Pleasant an outdoor pool? Because using the pro forma that you've used, if a developer were to bring that to City Hall, I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't approve their project. Thanks.